This is The Whole Truth, brought to you by the Greenville County Democratic Party. From local city councils and school boards to the South Carolina legislature and the nation, we provide a clear-eyed view of the whole truth surrounding the decisions, the policies, and the politics that have a direct impact on your family, your neighbors, and you. Today is the first episode of a special Civics series in our podcast of The Whole Truth. We will be exploring the Greenville area-related civic organizations, their intended functions, and the challenges they face. This will include city governments, county councils, state House of Representatives, and state Senate functions as well as others. Join us each week to get a clearer understanding of these civic roles as you hear directly from the people who have stepped up to fulfill their civic duties in these roles. Today we start with the subject of boards and commissions with GCRA member and advocate for multiple areas, Ms. Joanna Reese. Please excuse the technical computer issue resulting in a lack of video of our host, the GCDP chair, Stacey Mars.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Whole Truth, and I am excited because today we have with us Miss Joanna Reese, and we've been trying to get her in here forever, y'all, so I'm glad she's here. A little bit about Joanna: she is a real estate agent and advocates for inclusive real estate practices, and she is widely recognized as a prominent advocate for LGBTQ housing. Sound good? So far?
Thank you so much.
Okay, just making sure. She's also a board member for the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority, representing District 26, where she serves as the Administration Committee co-chair following her appointment. And she is also a community organizer that focuses on local in-person spaces aimed at protecting the rights of women, immigrants, and neurodivergent individuals. And what I've come to know her as a host of regional community gatherings as the Greenville Connects, GVL Connects events. Is all that right so far?
That sounds right.
Okay, good. I probably should have let you look at this before I did it next time, though. But I'm glad you are here because one of the things we want to talk about today are boards and commissions. You and I were talking earlier, and we know that people know so much about, elected offices, especially when it comes to state and federal levels, right? But they don't know that at a very local level, that even if you don't want to run for office, you can still contribute in a really meaningful way by being on a board or a commission. And I know, just from seeing you on social media, that this is near and dear to your heart, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think for me, my journey with boards and commissions, I didn't know they existed 4 or 5 years ago, and didn't really have a lot of civics knowledge of how to get involved or how to impact real change. But as I really began to delve into real estate, one of my big passions was helping first-time home buyers, especially single moms. I love working with single moms. But so many of the first-time homes are becoming increasingly unaffordable. And I would always hear about these programs and grants and down payment assistance, but it always seemed like marketing ploys, and when my clients would try to go through them, they would hit walls, and so I decided to start really chasing all the rabbit trails and to see where they would lead, and so much of the ones that were legitimate seemed to all come back at a county level, and were connected in some way to GCRA, which is the board I ended up joining, but in doing just that piece, getting on the board with GCRA has illuminated to me how much of our daily life in Greenville is really controlled, impacted, and changed at that level. Much more so than what's happening on the news and at Washington. What really impacts our life is County Square.
Absolutely. So before we really get into things, you talked about you were on the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority. Tell us just a little bit about that board and what you do on it and how it really does impact people's everyday lives.
Yeah. So when I first applied to be on the board, I truly did not know what it did. I didn't. I knew that I kept seeing GCRA is tied to these grants, and they do seem legitimate. And so when I went to apply, I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I was coming in as definitely a skeptic to be like, all right, where's all the money going? What do you guys do? Why don't, coming in to ask the questions that nobody asks is my favorite thing to do.
Sure.
And really in the first month after being selected to be on the board, the executive director, Joe, offered to do a county half-day drive around where he was going to basically tell me the story of GCRA over the decades and help me understand its function. So I was able to see things that started 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that are under construction, houses that were actively being built, and kind of seeing that spectrum. As he began to explain a lot of the things that seem so ambiguous, I think the easiest way to boil it down is that 60-something years ago when HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, was set up at a federal level, the idea of protecting housing rights for all people at a national level as a right. That's kind of where that all came from. And rural areas like South Carolina often need a little extra help. And so the idea of HUD is taking some of those tax dollars and pouring it into rural areas like South Carolina. But they wanted to make sure those funds were being used as designated. So about, I think it was 55-ish years ago, that when these funds started getting allocated out, they wanted each county or region to set up a board that would govern those funds.
Okay.
So GCRA, a lot of people assume are trying to take local tax funds when really no, it's the majority of their work is federal funds that are designated for the rural upstate. And so their job is to take all of those and then figure out the best way to leverage them. So sometimes that is, and each of them have little buckets of where they can be spent. Some of it is earmarked for elderly housing, helping people age in place if their home has damage. There's some that is earmarked for infrastructure. So a lot of the old mill communities, sewer systems maybe were installed over 100 years ago, are very outdated and is just waiting for a crisis, especially if we continue to add housing.
Right.
So GCRA will come in and partner and basically have very limited funds. And so they'll say, hey, we'll do this portion. And then a developer who's been asking, they already own the land, say, if you'll cover the rest, now you can develop there.
Right.
And so their job is not just to spend the money, but to really leverage it for the community's gain all around.
Okay, so a couple things I heard, Joanna. People like to think that government can move at a really fast pace and it can just be done now. But what I'm hearing is that you learned that it's not so simple, one, and that it moves at a really glacially slow pace. Because I've heard you went back 50 and 60 years to some of this stuff. So what is it that you would tell people who expect some of this stuff to happen quickly?
So that really is, it's a funny timing of my journey into all of this, because I definitely fall in a purple area on a lot of my core beliefs, and I think I've always been the one to want to see accountability. And anyone who doesn't even know me, I talk fast, I move fast, I do,
right.
I do a lot, and I do not like to waste time. So the idea of government moving slowly has always bothered me. And it was a bit of like a resentment of like, why would we keep adding funds to something that moves so slow and ineffective? Until I actually sat down and began to work through and understand those complexities and realize it's not slow because government officials don't care, which is kind of what the messaging comes around, is they're not in a hurry, they don't care, they're just wasting your money. It's much more because it's the people's corporation is the idea. You can't make a giant decision without having the time for people to voice their opinions and for it to be planned and that there be accountability in place. So I didn't even know, there's 100 acronyms I've learned in affordable housing now, that from the federal level, there's a dozen different programs. Each one has its own, there's an entire software. You can specialize in just being able to report correctly on how the government funds are used because of how many things are layered in there as a prevention of fraud, waste, and abuse, by the way. So when the government's moving slow, that is the stonewall to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. When things are moving rapidly, that is how things get lost, broken, stolen, hacked. And so government isn't meant to be the most profitable corporation. And I think a lot of corporations have normalized the move fast and break things mentality came from big tech. And it kind of infiltrated into society, that we all kind of move fast and break things, we'll figure it out later. But government shouldn't do that. That's not best for the people. Corporations, sure, and if they, lose their billion, but if a government fails...
That's their billion.
Right, but if government fails and the septic backs up in an entire community and people have an outbreak and die, then we're going, oops, we shouldn't have moved fast.
Right.
We should be looking 50 years in advance at infrastructure. We should be putting buckets of funds. We should be looking at long term, not just running around spraying money and trying to move fast and break things.
Right. So in other words, the government should have kept the software they were using instead of using Elon and his Doge Bros. Is that what I just heard?
I mean, you could certainly say the move fast break things. We're still seeing all the ripples.
Right.
Yes. But really, so the same time that Doge came in at a federal level, Greenville County Council had a big wave of people come in who, when I had lunch, we see eye to eye. We understand we have a lot of the similar goals, fiscal responsibility, but if you're not willing to do the half-day tour with Joe and deep dive and ask questions to the point of annoying people,
right,
it's hard to really understand the intricacies. So the problem when people come in with the Doge mindset, they wanted to come into county council and be like, oh, we'll just chop away $1 million here and $1 million there. Who cares? We're going to put it back in. And then they very quickly, several of them have decided not to rerun. Several of them have already been primaried out for this upcoming election because they realized they couldn't fulfill what the promise was.
Right.
If they did, it would break things.
Right.
And so, I definitely feel, yes, government moves slow. And if you'll get into the mix, you're able to see why it's moving slow. And I do think there's ways it could speed up, but that would require more of us stepping in and helping, and helping advocate for what that looks like. It's not as simple as just chainsaw hacking, believe it or not.
Say it again. Say it louder, because I don't think people get that.
Yes.
So beyond the major countywide boards, there are often critical vacancies in localized special districts like the fire and service areas and legislative appointed boards. How can county leadership and community advocates better bridge the gap to ensure these specialized hyperlocal roles are filled by a diverse group of qualified neighbors? And we just had elections last year, I think it was, or maybe this year, where some of those fire districts were up, but we don't focus on stuff like that, right?
And so many people, again, I think millennials, plus or minus age group, but that kind of generational seems the mark where we started being able to think government is working like it's supposed to, so we don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
I think there was a wave of human rights accomplishments and freedoms. Even today, we're celebrating 11 years of queer rights and the ability for marriage equality. And so I think when a lot of those wins happened, a lot of the generation that was coming up said, okay, cool, it's working. I'm going to focus on my career or my family or whatever. But those little things we heard a little bit in, history class growing up of, freedom isn't free, and if you don't stay, you lose it. You have to fight for it. Have come full circle, and it is so important that we realize a lot of these boards are sitting with vacant seats. Specifically, one county board that's had vacant seats for the last couple years that I've been tracking has been the Department of Mental Health Services.
Really?
And again, I'm trying to say what I can say. My experience with the Greenville's Department of Mental Health is very, very lacking. There is major issues that need addressed, and I think that scares away people because that's not a fun board to join if you know that people are going to be asking you the questions. Why isn't this working? And it is. It's going to take some time to fix, but now's the time when we need people who care about that and have that specialty to come in and start helping one brick at a time.
Well, yeah, and I think, the mental health space is one that we know there is a crisis anyway.
Yeah.
And so to not have even anything in place to be able to help deal with that.
Correct.
And it is part of that, like the education part of it too?
I think so. So that's been a conversation I've had with various members of county council and of various boards and commissions. There was a long time when there was boards and commissions opening, people showed up. They just showed up. And I think they were posted in the newspaper. And so if you go back 20 years,
right,
every Sunday that it was coming up, they would know, and people came. Right now, not all the boards are being filled, and county council members are going out and kind of hand-picking people and saying, please come join this board, which could be leveraged for finding really qualified people, or could be leveraged for finding people who are going to do exactly what you want them to do on that board. And so that's kind of my thought around, no one invited me to join the boardroom. I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just figuring it out as I went, and I'm so thankful that I've been in that room. And I think that a lot of people would have that same experience. So they feel intimidated, they feel unqualified. They're not. Like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're engaged enough to be listening to a political podcast versus,
Yeah, I
Taylor
tell
Swift's new
I tell people
Easter
all the
eggs
time,
or whatever.
Go to a county council meeting. You're qualified.
Oh,
I promise.
you're qualified.
Like, you're qualified.
The night so in the process of application, just shortly, is an online application. You only can apply for one board or commission per cycle. So some people have been like, I'm just going to apply to all of them. I'm like, no, the first one you apply to, then that's it. Then none of the others count. So once you've done that online application, County Council has about a month where the clerk gets it all organized and reaches out and sets a date. And then everyone who's applied for all the boards, so maybe 50, 60 people, are invited to just come at like around usually 5 o'clock to County Square, and they get 60 seconds to introduce themselves to council and answer questions if they have it.
Sure.
Historically, what was happening, County Council didn't even really know what the boards did or what was needed on the boards. So it was just who they liked and seemed cool, or whoever
Right.
showed up.
Yeah.
But I am actually really excited. County Council, I think it was Blunt who led the charge, but this last couple months have just refocused on boards and commissions, realizing how important it is.
Yeah.
And so they just did a big evening session where they invited all the executive directors in and asked them questions about, what does your board do, by the way, and what kind of members would help.
Wow.
So they're going to be a little more informed about who a good fit is.
Sure.
Which is a great thing. And once some people can't even attend that night. It doesn't exclude you. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to public speak. It is not public speaking. And the night that I went and spoke to introduce myself, one of the councilmen was asleep while it was talking. So I'm talking like, it
Wow.
feels like Parks and Rec. You're qualified.
So you were talking about the application and the boards that are vacant. Where do people go to find that information?
Yes. The easiest route I have found, rather than trying to click through 97 menus, is literally type in Greenville County Council Boards and Commissions, and it is what pops up first. It is a government webpage, so it is not super pretty and well designed. You may think you've landed in the wrong place because it is 3 hyperlinks. The first hyperlink says County Council appointed boards. The next one says legislative delegation of boards. And the last one is citizen elected. The citizen elected, you actually do have to run a campaign. So the first 2 are the ones that are really, really easy for someone who cares to get involved. Either of those 2 first links, the county council appointed or the legislative appointed, same process, online application. The legislative, I don't think you're invited to speak, but at the end, it comes from higher up that they stamped.
I was going to say
approval.
the legislative is going to be kind of at the state level,
Right,
correct? Okay.
correct. But similar process of applying through online, and then it's local to Greenville. Board meetings are typically once a month, but some of the boards are once a quarter. Some of them are as needed. My board is once a month meeting and once a month committee, so it's basically 2 hours a month is your minimum commitment kind of time. And then if you're insane like me, you can commit dozens more because there's so much these boards are doing that the community needs to know about. And that's
Sure.
part of the board member's role.
So it's not a huge time commitment because
No.
I feel like that's probably something that may hold people back as
Totally.
well, especially people who have young families, things like that, and want to be involved, just don't know how to be involved. So
And these boards you can go through. So if you click County Council appointed boards and commissions, that hyperlink, it's going to load the big spreadsheet of 20-ish boards, including the fire districts and the ones that are specific to, you might be in the exact neighborhood.
Right.
Each one will show a number of how many seats they expect to be available this cycle. However, sometimes there's members who decide not to continue or something like that. So sometimes more open up at the last minute. But usually you can see if there's 2 seats, 5 seats, that kind of thing. And if you click on any of those boards, you can see when they meet, how often they meet, and what their focus is. Each of them hyperlink to a board's overview.
Okay. Very nice. So on the GCRA board, you oversee the investment of local and federal funds dedicated, and you were talking about that earlier, dedicated to affordable workforce housing, neighborhood revitalization, and community development. What do you see as the most complex challenge or common public misconception around the federal housing programs today? And how do you ensure revitalization efforts don't lead to displacement, aka gentrification?
Yes, love that question. So many layers to that. Okay,
Right.
So the first one I would say, one of the misconceptions I like to push back on as often as possible is this affordable housing is not what people put in their brain 20 years ago. A lot of people, when I've said I work in affordable housing, they assume it's slum rentals that are poorly maintained and unsafe. That is not at all what Greenville County affordable housing looks like. Affordable housing right now, a good portion of the people working with GCRA, we are working towards affordable home ownership, not even just rental. And both buckets are important, but GCRA is looking more at looking at scale. So I think there was a survey done in 2020 that said we needed to add about 20,000 additional homes in the upstate over the next decade. We are way behind that right now.
Way behind.
Yeah. And so GCRA, for example, there is a developer who was wanting to come and put in a senior living facility, and found a piece of property near Cherrydale, so it was a great location near bus lines and a lot of the factors that are important for senior housing. But as they started going through it, they realized, based on the grading and a lot of the complexities of it, it was not going to be a profitable thing. So this was just going to go back to being an empty lot. And this is really, again, the condensed version of a long multi-year process. GCRA and various other organizations were able to kind of come in and say, hey, we can leverage these funds to help go ahead and get the water and the electric and the taps and a lot of those big infrastructure costs put in if you make sure for the next 30 years we have a ground lease or some of those kind of control mechanisms they're able to layer in that guarantee these units are reserved for seniors making, under $40,000 a year.
Sure.
And so looking at being able, with $1 million, you can build 3 homes or 300 senior living for 30 years. And so a lot of times, I think the misconception is that it's just not simple. And so any of the programs, you can make them sound like waste or you can make them sound ineffective.
Sure.
But the beautiful thing is, because of what was set up so long ago, and is being slightly dismantled, but what we currently have does create those buckets. So there is funds that we're going to use to help create more living for elderly people. And those funds, like I said, can build 3 houses maybe, or we can leverage.
Right.
And so, if we had enough funds to build enough single-family homes for everyone who needs it, that would be beautiful. But in the meantime, they're trying to create diversity of housing where there is affordable rentals, affordable home ownership, affordable, all the options.
Right. Okay. So a couple things. One, you were talking about the affordable housing, how we're trying to do that, right? But I think also part of it is the not in my backyard contingent, right? So how do you get them to be on board with this? Because I know a lot of times what happen is they'll come to these county council meetings, because I've been there, and they're like, we don't want this in our backyard. And I think county council actually just shot down a developer for that very reason.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes they need shut down. Sometimes developers need to be told, no, not here, this is not. There was a lot of developers coming in, and getting county council to give them tax in lieu of benefits, and then developing 50 houses that are now going to need 50 people's public waste and public schools and public roads, but none of the taxes are coming from that development.
Right.
And so some of those things are what created the mess we're currently in with infrastructure in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I don't mind when citizens come in engaged. What I would hope is that more citizens will come in asking questions before it's in your backyard.
Right.
Because it is complex. There are times that it needs shut down because it's going to cause traffic. It's not an ideal,
Right.
And there are times that what you're afraid is coming isn't a problem.
Right.
That it's actually going to, them coming through GCR tearing up an entire road and people getting upset and then realizing, no, we were replacing sewer lines that were beginning to leach out into your yard. You're welcome.
Right.
So a lot of times people are trigger happy to come. People like to get excited. And sometimes you'll get one hype person who heard something, didn't quite verify facts or ask any questions, and then begins to activate everyone to come out en masse.
Right.
And I love the passion, but I do wish, especially people who know they have that power, I wish they would ask real questions before sounding alarms, because then when there really is a 5-bell alarm, people don't believe it.
Sure.
And there have been some of those in the last few years at county council that people needed to show up and say no.
This is true. This is very true.
So I guess the balance of it being affordable housing is essential for every community. When people have affordable housing, crime goes down, wages go up, the whole economy begins to thrive, education ratings go up, everything. And so by saying not in my backyard, you are limiting your own community's growth and success, and a lot of people have that mentality of grabbing and keeping it ever to yourself.
Right.
And it was actually in a church sermon years ago, but it's a visual I've never let go, that if you have a giant bucket of coins and you try to grab them and hold as many as you can by squeezing tight, you're going to get $1.
Right.
But if you'll hold your hands open, you can hold $5, or whatever it is. And I think that mentality shift is really needed as our community is growing at such a rapid pace.
Absolutely, I agree. But when we talk about affordable housing, and I've had this conversation several times, everybody's definition of affordable is different, right?
Yes.
So when we say affordable housing, how do we get people to understand? There's a certain concept to it.
Totally. So what the federal standard of that now is, I think it's 35% or less of your income going towards housing. So some of the biggest wins is women, especially single moms, a lot of times are working 2 jobs and they're spending 50% of their income on rent at one of the apartments.
Yeah.
Several people in these positions have been able to come through GCRA, show that they are doing the steps. They'll go through a financial literacy class. They'll do the process, the work, and then GCRA can match their down payment funds and make it where all of a sudden they are living in their own home that is theirs. They own it. And it's less than a third of their paycheck. So all of a sudden their kids are at a safe school in a safe neighborhood, and it changes lives. I recently, as a realtor, had someone reach out who was an adult wanting to start shopping for a house, and had found me because I'm on the board for GCRA, and I was like, well, those don't touch, those are separate. And he was like, no, I don't think I would qualify. I have enough income. And he was like, but my mom got a house because of GCRA when I was growing up, and it changed my life.
So talk a little bit about that, right? Because that's amazing.
Yeah.
When a single mother or a single parent, okay, because there's single dads out there, can make that a reality for their children and build that foundation and work towards that generational wealth. The program you speak of, tell us about it.
Yeah. So many people leave money on the table. If you are a first-time home buyer, go to, I would say, the easiest access point to see which ones you might qualify, because again, by the buckets, the complexities, and this is why a lot of realtors won't touch any of these programs or educate themselves, is because it changes every year based on income bracket and the federal scale. But they're usually based on area median income, which just had a huge jump because we've had a lot of things. But typically, if you are at 120% of the median income or lower, you qualify for something.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and that could be as $5,000. Okay, that's a pretty chunk of money. Or it could be literally, there are programs up to $50,000 that is a grant. You don't pay it back, covering towards your down payment, helping buy down your rates, helping, and that's
amazing.
It is. Usually you need to have your credit at around, I think it's 640 or higher, which is very doable for anyone. If you don't know how, I can connect you to people who can help you walk through that process. It's not, again, it's not going to be instant. It's like government. It's going to take time.
Of course.
But even this year, I've been able to help some first-time buyers who came to me being like, I know it's probably like 10 years away, but when people come and think it's 10 years away and they're still asking the questions, those are the perfect people. I'm like, I'm so excited. Because usually it's a year away because there are opportunities if you'll do the work.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, it basically, Community Works is the website here in Greenville that kind of helps manage a lot of that. So GCRA, a lot of our funds that are earmarked for that go through Community Works. On their website, you can go to, if you just live in Greenville County, Spartanburg County, there's different employers, and the county council just created a whole fund if you work for the county, that there's an extra down payment incentive.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a ton of different buckets. And, and anybody who's out there working and feeling like rent's eating up your entire paycheck should look at those and at least start asking those questions.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow, that's good. That's good information.
Yes,
that's very good information. So,
it's based on area median income and a sliding chart of household size as well. Okay. So that's why I've emphasized. Sometimes if you're a single individual, it's a little harder to qualify. But if you have a couple kids in your house, very quickly you're able to get $20,000, $30,000, pay your entire down payment, where you just walk in and start paying your mortgage instead of worrying about all of that. So it's really incredible opportunity.
We single people get the short end of the stick all the time.
I'll give you a couple kids if you want them.
I have 2 nephews and a niece on the way.
Don't be telling me you got no short end of the stick.
I can't claim them. I do. So as we end, we've talked about this a little bit more, but I want you to just kind of reiterate the application period for the boards is going to start soon, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when this episode will drop, but they used to be September. They announced last week or so that they are opening July 1 and closing at the end of July. So it popped up. It is right now.
Okay. So people need to start looking at what boards they might potentially want to be on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll be throughout the month of July, as I can, hosting a few virtual seminars that walk people through. On the screen, you can see me clicking through to kind of follow and see exactly how it works, where the application is. But yeah, I would say now is the time. And if you're like, there's no way I can do it this month, they come up twice a year. So the best time is actually to start about 6 months ahead. So now would be a great time if you're not doing it now to get ready for spring.
So you were talking about how you do a class or a webinar on that. Tell them where they can find you so they know when the next class is.
Ooh, where to find me? I try not to. I'm working on my communication strategy right now. I have my advocacy, my nonprofit work, and then my real estate, and all this tied together. But the easiest way probably is. Hold on.
I found you on Facebook.
I'm trying to think where I will consistently post this. The easiest way to find me is probably Instagram or Facebook, and it's Joanna 864 Realtor, so Realtor. But yeah, if you find me on either of those, or go to my Linktree, which is Linktree/Joanna Reese. I'm constantly sharing updates about local ways to plug in to nonprofits and to local government. And then anytime I'm hosting one of those seminars, I'll blast it out. If you let me know that you are interested in a board, I can get you on that specific mailing list so you kind of get updates each cycle.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna. You've given us a lot of information, and you've given me some stuff to think about. And if you are not following her, she told you how to go follow her so that you can get the resources that you need to either be on a board or look towards buying a house.
Absolutely.
So thanks again, everybody. Y'all have a good one.
The Greenville County Democratic Party thanks you for watching or listening. We are thrilled that you are being an active participant in our civic society. But there are many others who still haven't recognized that their participation will make a positive difference. So we ask you to please share this podcast with others you know, especially those outside your politically minded circles. Most of all, we need you with your time, skills, and effort to help engage more like-minded voters in order to make significant change to our government. Find out how to get involved by connecting with us. Visit the GCDP website, www.greenvilledemocrats.com, and look at the upcoming events calendar or sign up on the volunteer page. Keep up with us by following or subscribing at our social media platforms. Search for GVL Dem on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, or Greenville County Democratic on YouTube. Thanks.